The next time I come up with some bright idea about making 30 reviews in 30 days, someone remind me to start before it's needed. What's going on, Dungeon Dwellers? Welcome back to Dave's Dungeon. I hope you're all doing well. I am the one, the only Dungeon Master Dave, bringing you all the best news and reviews and Let's Play views on horror and gaming that you'll find. So won't you come on this journey with me? Because I went on a fun journey. Today we're going to be reviewing the movie The Mortuary Collection. Now this is a Shudder original. I think it was made in 2016, 2018, but don't hold me to that. But it's definitely a fun, fun. Oh, wow. You, yeah, did that really just happen? Hold on one second. And you're back. Okay. Wow. Don't go passing out on me like that again. So, anyways, I had a good time. Um, this film was actually a very good movie. And as I say that, I don't mean just a good horror film. I mean a good film. So before we get too deep into the review, let me just say, watch this film. It's good. Enjoy it. Also, you may be seeing a few reviews go up, a few at a time each day, because I'm gonna try with the next posting to put up two, and then two, because I'm only really like a day behind in viewing the films. But it's really the review process where I've got thoughts and things I'm trying to say about each film, and it's taking a little bit of time to come together. So just bear with me if these things are coming together a little late. I apologize. Just like everything in my life, it's a disaster because I'm involved. But anyways, I really enjoyed this film. This film was actually not a disaster, though. With the way it's set up, it could have been. Um, One of the main problems I have with anthology style films, which this is one, is that oftentimes the the various story spokes that an anthology will stick out will all stay separate. They won't actually come together to form anything cohesive. So when you put them in a movie together, it kind of, unless they all have one theme, they're not really going to come together. You see what I'm saying? Something like the ABCs of Death is a good example of this, where nothing ever connects any one story to the other than the fact that these are a bunch of horror stories, and that we're trying to come up with a story per letter. And so, in that way, it kind of plays together, but there's no real significance in the plot of what's going on to the understanding of why we're doing each story and why each story matters. You get what I'm saying? A lot of times, the disconnect between the different story beats can make it harder to watch an anthology for any given amount of time. But this didn't have that problem. Uh, so for that, and so I don't spoil anything, I'm gonna cut it off there and say that this gets a 9 for plot. So we're looking at the plot. We're working our way through our normal 5. And if you don't know, I guess I go ahead and explain it in a one sentence blurb. I review each film based on 5 criteria. That is plot, special effects, tension, gore, and villain and killer. So we're gonna start with the first one, which I've been kind of discussing, is that the anthology style of this film works, and not just in the way an anthology normally would, where all the stories are separate and different. You instead get uh, um, you get stories that seem separate, and you start off thinking they're separate, and then you see how each one connects and tells you a little bit more about the overall scenario going on. And that, I think, is something anthology films have been failing to do for a while. So this movie gets props for that. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Now, it still does have some of the problems, and that's going to account for the point loss there. Um, it just feels a little disconnected, and then certain parts kill the tension for other parts. I'll just say that right now. Um, Special effects. I know I've given uh, the impression that I might be a little lenient on special effects, but I'm gonna give this movie a 7.5. A lot of them are okay to eh to it looks dated. I will say that this probably the some of the effects look dated in the CG sort of special movie magic quality that this film might exhibit. You know, they may look lower budget or dated quality. I'll say that much. But does that detract from what they're trying to do with it? Absolutely not. Um, except in a few areas. Oh man, that's one for the spoilers section. I'll just leave that one there. It totally turns into a sort of a mock epic with some of the special effects in this movie. So we'll talk about that later. But I give it a 7.5 out of 10 on special effects. Moving forward with the tension, I'm gonna give that an 8.5. I really feel like this film does a good job of carrying its tension, and that's part of why I gave the plot such a high score and how the plot works. Each spoke of the stories together because it really does carry the tension, and you really do have to start wondering about what's going on and what's really happening. Now, part of the detraction comes from the loss of tension you get with how silly some stories are and how some of them line up. And I don't mean to say silly in a bad way, but I mean the premise is a little like it's begging for the silliness factor because he's telling a story to shock you, and so it is kind of reaching for that level of silliness, in a way, without spoiling too much. Um, but the tension starts to build in a real way once things really get going. Um, the comedy of what brevity and silliness a story might have, very early on falls away. It really turns into the serious horror we all came here to see. So it kind of eases you in a very nice way there, and I give it some kudos there for that. But later on, it kind of devolves into a I don't know. I'm gonna say this: there are points in time that the movie makes choices that devolve the tension in a way that just doesn't do it any favors. You understand? It really doesn't do it any favors, and I detract points for that as well. That's why it's an 8.5 versus what could have been a 9, given they made a few different choices. But we'll talk about that in spoilers. Gore, I'm gonna give a 9 in this. I think it was very tastefully done, save for really it's kind of just one moment, and I feel like the one moment was even not so bad. It didn't go too far. It really didn't go too far. It could have went too far, and they could have really hammed it up, so to speak. Uh, both parts of it, but this one scene is where you kind of, again, I want to say it goes too far in certain places, but then d- it doesn't. It doesn't really go that far. Um, and to the point where it sticks to comical sometimes, and on the point of slapstick in a very uncomfortable way. Um, so for that, I'm actually gonna amend my score and give it an 8 on Gore. So, um, I was gonna give it a 9, but then I was thinking about this other scene now that I got to talk about in spoilers. That is just heart wrenching and just too much. And it's gore for all the wrong reasons. It's gore to set up a situation that's horrifying and not what you've done is horrifying. So we'll talk about it. And then killer and victim. I think in this you really have a special thing going on here. I think this is a 10. This is the 10 of the film. Not every film has a 10. Granted, not every film has a 10, but the films that have 10s, this has a 10, and it's dynamic between the killer and the victim. Um, and by the way, this film does have a killer and a victim, so you can be on the lookout for that while you watch it. But for the most part, I have to keep that spoilerific because, yeah, let's see if I can actually do this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So take a look over here, and if you do, um, you may have a few people who may be on the suspect list of killer and victim. Okay, and it may not be who you think it is. I was pleasantly surprised of who this actually ended up being, and who I won't say who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. Probably not even in the spoiler section because that was a good one. Yeah, you got me. You actually got me. A lot of movies don't get to say they did that. A lot of movies kind of fall flat and don't surprise me much. I want you to think of movies in the comments that, surprised you and comment down below and let me know what movies have shocked you in the past. But right now, this film actually did. This film actually nailed it because I was like, nah, it is this other thing I think it is. And nope, not actually. Not actually. They didn't go the way I thought they would, which is pleasantly surprising. And they've set it up to where the dynamic, I don't want to say is over, but like with a lot of killer victim features, uh, at the end of any particular film, you might guess that the dynamic between a killer and his victim at that point is over. Um, Not a lot of victims come back for sequels. Um, but this one prepped it. I mean, just straight up ready to go. Kind of seems like they had that in mind. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. So for that reason, giving me interest in a future film, I'm going to give it a 10 for there, which gives me a total overall score of 43 out of 50. Given the minor reduction on gore, yeah, all that's, yeah, 43 out of 50, which is still, hey, it's still a B plus. It's still like an A minus if you want to really give it a few points back that I might have robbed it of. Um, you know, it really is a decent film. And that's what I meant when I said it earlier. I don't think it's just a good horror film. There are things anthology films need all over the place need to learn from this film, this particular one, because any any particular movie that's trying to tell a bunch of different stories needs to learn the lessons this movie is taught and find a way to put the sinews in there to connect them and to make it all relevant to, well, I'm listening to you tell me a bunch of stories. Why aren't you just telling the one story? So it's it's particularly good to see a movie pull that off well. So for that reason, it's gonna get a B plus slash A minus, and that means go see this film, people. But that's gonna do it for those of you who don't want any spoilers. So scurry off, go to bed, and I'll see you in the next review. Hope you're doing well. Make sure you give me a like if you enjoyed this, and make sure you subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out, and it really lets me know that I'm doing well and you like what you see. Um, if you want notifications, ring the bell. That way, when I drop these videos, I know they're not on time, but they're still going up. So you'll at least know when they do. So, anyways, night night, sleep tight, kitties. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Shoo. Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers, 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 spoilers. Okay. Hopefully you know it's coming. If you get mad at me, it's your own fault. I have to say first off, I love the Mortician. I so hope that they're not done with him, but at the same time, Clancy Brown is getting a little old. And if you don't know who Clancy Brown is, yeah, that Clancy Brown. He was in Highlander. He was in SpongeBob. He's been in so much. He was in the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. He's been in so many different things. Clancy Brown is an amazing voice actor. Heck, I even think he was in Adventure Time. Yeah, that Clancy Brown. Um, and he is amazing in this. He is absolutely phenomenal. I love him in this, and I don't I don't remember if the mortician had like an actual name. You'll have to go back and watch it. I've watched so many films, and I'm so bad with names I can barely remember my own. But also the female killer in this film. Haha, spoiler. Uh, yeah, I said I wasn't gonna reveal that, but whatever. You know you're in the spoiler section now. I'll actually tell you some stuff. The heroine or victimess, whatever you want to call her, the female killer, in this film is phenomenal. I never I never once guessed. I never once I had every expectation that the mortician was playing some sort of you play dangerous game here with a deal from the devil. You know, it just it didn't play out that way. Well, except maybe it did, because I like the way it buzzed you at the end. Yeah, if you watch the film, you know. Yeah, you know how it got you. I love how that closed, and it was cool to get to see it happen because the stories don't like imagine the they like tell you her story in a way that she doesn't even realize. And then you get to like the closing story, which is her and the mortician, and he points out how many other stories there are that you don't even know about that are so much like hers. And so you're going, oh, there's more. There's more. And that felt really good. But then you get to the special effects. And some of these practical effects were fine. They look like they're from Army of Darkness. And I love it. I love hokey special effects, but some of the CG was just god awful. Just so bad. And like I'm sitting there like, come on, I've watched Birdemic, man. This looks like that level. Um but and I hate to be that harsh on it, but it's pretty bad. Uh and the gore, holy shit. Holy shnikes, guys. The one story with the husband and the wife, just you could skip it. You could just about skip it if you're squeamish. You start seeing the wife who's disabled, and just skip it. It's harsh. It's hard to watch, and you feel for everybody involved, and then the conclusion happens, and you're going, uh, uh, you know, you're fighting it. You're fighting it real hard. Um, but then you get to the babysitter scene, and I'll let that stand for itself. Oh, the gore in that was used just right, except for the fact where like you can see the one part where the dude is like spinning her around. He's got her on her shoulder. He's like wrestling move, like spin, 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 and off the top rope, wah, and just tosses her out in the middle of this. And they're doing it in this like the lights are flashing kind of sense, so it looks so ridiculous when you see it, and you're gonna laugh, and I know I did. I laughed so hard when I saw it, but ah, it's so it could have been better. Could have been better, but at the same time, the gore was used effectively there versus earlier it gets oh, and all of that kind of plays together. Each story, while it doesn't seem like it, is telling you the sort of breakdown of how both the killer and the victim and how the mortician and this girl killer are gonna eventually become connected. And each story talks about the town and where this mortuary is, sort of located and what's located around it. The school and the mental institution, and it just it builds a universe for where these anthologies could exist in a way I haven't seen since Trick or Treat. And Trick or Treat didn't even, in my opinion, get it this right. Trick or Treat got it really right. It really did. But it didn't make it as personal to a single story like this film did. And that's what's really impressive and why I say it's really good. Even if the anthologies aren't horror. You could learn a lot from how this story puts them together, and I really think that's important. So I think that's gonna be it. I think I actually did that in like 20 minutes, which makes me happy because it means I'm not having to eat up so much of your time. But anyways, check out this film, and that's what I think is gonna do it for this video. In the spoiler section, I was trying to figure out how to say the spoiler section and the end of the video. But if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. It really does help. And if you've watched this far, you know you like it, so you might as well. Come on, do it, do it. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure, Dungeon Dwellers. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, drop a comment, leave a like, and I'll see you on our next adventure, Dungeon Dwellers. Sleep tight.